The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched wide like an ocean of marble and light. Ambassador Krixtal of the Zolonian Empire stood at the center podium, his blue skin shimmering under the bright ceiling lights. Around him sat representatives from 40 different worlds, each one looking more worried than the last. The air felt thick with tension as Krixtal held up a small metal tablet covered in strange symbols. "Council members," Krixtal began, his voice echoing through the massive chamber. "What I'm about to show you will change everything we thought we knew about our galaxy." He pressed a button on his control device, and the wall behind him lit up with images of ancient ruins. Broken stone pillars reached toward alien skies while strange writing covered every surface. These ruins were found on Kepler 442b, in the Outer Rim territories. Krixtal continued. "Our archaeological teams have been studying them for 3 standard years. What they discovered should terrify every living being in this council." The images changed to show close-up pictures of the ancient writing. The symbols looked angry and sharp, as if whoever carved them had been in a great hurry. General Thrackmore of the Hegemony military leaned forward in his chair. His massive form cast a shadow over the smaller delegates around him. "Ambassador Krixtal, with respect, we have seen many ancient ruins before. Why should these be any different?" His voice rumbled like distant thunder, making some of the smaller aliens shift nervously. Krixtal touched his control device again. The wall now showed translations of the ancient text in 17 different galactic languages. "Because, General, these ruins contain warnings about a species that was supposed to be nothing more than myth, a species called humans." A murmur ran through the council chamber like wind through tall grass. Some delegates looked confused while others appeared frightened. The name human was known throughout the galaxy, but only in children's stories and old legends. Parents used tales of humans to make their young ones behave. "Be good or the humans will come for you," they would say. It was just a story, something to scare children into eating their vegetables. Dr. Velnara, the council's chief historian, stood up slowly. Her ancient frame shook slightly as she spoke. "The human myths have existed for over 10,000 years across dozens of different civilizations. But Ambassador, surely you cannot be suggesting that these myths are based on reality?" Krixtal nodded grimly. "That is exactly what I am suggesting, Dr. Velnara. The progenitor ruins contain detailed descriptions of human capabilities, human technology, and human behavior. According to these texts, humans were real. They were active in our galaxy, and they disappeared suddenly about 12,000 years ago." The council chamber erupted in noise as delegates began talking all at once. Some shouted questions while others argued among themselves. General Thrackmore slammed his massive fist on his desk, creating a sound like a small explosion. "Silence," he roared. "Let the ambassador finish his presentation." The noise died down as Krixtal continued. The texts describe humans as world breakers and star devourers. They say humans could destroy entire planets with their weapons, and that they traveled between stars faster than any other species. But here's the strangest part. The texts also say that humans were unpredictable. Sometimes they would destroy civilizations, but other times they would help them grow and become stronger. Ambassador Yextal from the Centauri Republic raised one of her 4 arms. "Even if these texts are accurate, why should we worry about a species that disappeared 12,000 years ago? They are clearly extinct." Krixtal's expression grew even more serious, because the texts suggest they are not extinct. They suggest that humans simply left our galaxy to explore other regions of space. And according to the final inscriptions we found, they promise to return. Far across the galaxy, in a region of space the Galactic Council had marked as forbidden territory, a human ship drifted silently between the stars. The vessel was called Liberty, and it was much smaller than the great battleships that followed behind it. Commander Jake Harrison stood on the bridge looking out at the starfield ahead of them. "Any sign of intelligent life yet, Lisa?" Jake asked the woman sitting at the science station. Dr. Lisa Martinez had been studying space signals for months, searching for any hint that they were not alone in the universe. "I am picking up some interesting quantum signatures from the next star system," Lisa replied. Her eyes focused on the glowing screens in front of her. The patterns suggest advanced technology, possibly even faster than light communication networks. Jake nodded and turned to his communications officer. "Lieutenant Brown, are you still monitoring those strange radio signals we detected last week?" "Yes, sir," Lieutenant Charlie Brown answered. "The signals are definitely artificial, and they are coming from multiple star systems. Whatever is out there, it is big and it is organized. Jake walked over to the main viewing screen and stared at the distant stars. Humanity had been exploring space for over 200 years, but they had never found evidence of other intelligent species. Now finally it seemed they were close to making contact with alien civilizations. "Set course for the source of those quantum signatures," Jake ordered. "It is time humanity introduced itself to the galaxy." Behind Liberty, a fleet of human ships followed in formation. There were destroyers like Guardian and Defiance, cruisers like Vengeance and Justice, and massive battleships like Enterprise. Each ship carried the best technology humanity could create, and crews trained for any situation they might encounter. Captain Alex Turner stood on the bridge of the battleship Defiance, watching long-range sensors for any sign of hostile activity. He had spent his entire career preparing for this moment. First contact with alien species. The question that worried him was whether these aliens would be friendly, or if they would see humanity as a threat. "Captain," called out his sensor operator, "I am detecting artificial structures in the target system. They look like space stations and possibly defensive platforms." Alex nodded calmly. "Continue monitoring, but do not take any aggressive actions. We are here to make friends, not enemies." Back in the Galactic Council chamber, Krikstal was showing the final images from the progenitor ruins. These pictures showed star maps with clear markings indicating the location of Earth's solar system. The maps were incredibly detailed and accurate, showing that whoever created them had extensive knowledge of human origins. "The implications are clear," Krikstal concluded. "The progenitors knew exactly where humans came from, and they left these coordinates for a reason, either as a warning to avoid that region of space or as guidance for when humans eventually returned." General Thrackmore stood up, his massive form dominating the chamber. "Even if humans are real, even if they still exist somewhere out there, what can we do about it? We cannot control what happens in distant regions of space." Dr. Velnara spoke up again, her voice trembling slightly. "According to the myths, humans possess technology far beyond anything we have ever seen. If they decide to return to our region of space, we may not have any choice but to submit to their will." The council chamber fell silent as the weight of this possibility settled on everyone present. For thousands of years, the galactic civilizations had lived in relative peace, with conflicts being small and manageable. The idea that a species of legendary power might return to their galaxy was terrifying beyond words. Ambassador Krikstal gathered his materials and prepared to leave the podium. "I recommend that we immediately begin preparations for the possibility of human contact. We should study everything we can find about them, and we should be ready for anything." As the council session ended and delegates began filing out of the Great Hall, none of them noticed the small communication device hidden in the chamber's ceiling. The device had been recording everything, and now it transmitted a brief signal toward the edge of galactic space, where human ships waited in the darkness between stars. The alien fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect military formation. 50 warships arranged in 3 attacking waves with heavy battleships in the center and faster cruisers on the flanks. Grand Admiral Yexthul of the Hegemony Fleet stood on the bridge of his flagship Dominator, studying the tactical displays that showed the small human force ahead of them. "Only 6 human ships," reported his tactical officer. 3 destroyers, 2 cruisers, and 1 battleship. They are vastly outnumbered." Yexthul nodded, his forearms folded across his massive chest. "The Galactic Council wants to know what these humans are capable of before we attempt real diplomacy. If they are as dangerous as the ancient warnings suggest, we need to understand their military strength." "Should we hail them first, Admiral?" asked the communications officer. "No," Yexthul replied coldly. "The Council's orders are clear. We test their capabilities through combat. If they survive, then we talk. If they do not survive, then they were not the threat we feared." Captain Derek Stone watched the approaching alien fleet from the bridge of the human cruiser Vengeance. His intelligence officer, Lieutenant Amy Walsh, was analyzing the alien ship configurations and reporting her findings. 50 ships total, Walsh reported. Energy signatures suggest they have powerful shields and heavy weapons. Their formation indicates they plan to attack us. Stone turned to his communications officer. "Any response to our peaceful contact attempts?" "Negative, Captain. They are maintaining radio silence." Stone felt his jaw tighten with anger. The humans had come here offering friendship and cooperation, But it seemed the aliens preferred to test their strength through violence. All stations prepare for combat. Weapons online, shields at maximum power. Dr. Carter stood in Guardian's command center, desperately trying to establish communication with the alien fleet. This is Dr. Ben Carter representing the human diplomatic mission. We come in peace and request the opportunity to discuss our mutual interests. Please respond. Only silence answered his calls. Captain Brooks moved to stand beside him, her hand resting on her weapon. Doctor, you need to get to the emergency shelter now. This is about to become a combat situation. I cannot abandon my mission, Carter replied firmly. Even if they attack us, I must continue trying to make peaceful contact. The alien fleet moved closer, weapons charging and targeting systems locking onto the human ships. Admiral Reeves watched from the Enterprise, knowing that she had only seconds to make a decision that could determine the future of human-alien relations. All ships, defensive positions, she ordered. Do not fire unless fired upon, but be ready to respond immediately if they attack. Grand Admiral Yexthul raised one of his arms, signaling his fleet to begin the attack. All ships commence firing. Target their largest vessel first. Energy beams and missile barrages erupted from the alien fleet, streaking across space toward the human ships. The attack was sudden and overwhelming, with no warning or attempt at communication. But the humans were ready. Captain Brooks threw Guardian into a spinning dive that carried the destroyer below the alien attack formation. Return fire, she ordered. Target their lead ships. The human response was unlike anything the alien fleet had ever encountered. Instead of the formal, predictable tactics used by galactic civilizations, the humans fought with creativity and unpredictability that confused the alien commanders. Lieutenant Commander Chris Morgan led his fighter squadron from the cruiser Justice in a daring attack that used the nearby asteroid field as cover. His pilots struck from unexpected angles, hitting alien ships where their shields were weakest. How are they moving like that? Yexthul demanded as he watched human fighters dance between asteroids that should have been impossible to navigate at combat speeds. Their ships should not be able to make those maneuvers. Human technology appears to be more advanced than our intelligence suggested. His tactical officer replied nervously. Captain Stone brought vengeance around in a flanking maneuver that caught 3 alien cruisers by surprise. His precision weapons fire disabled their shield generators in seconds, leaving them helpless against follow-up attacks from other human ships. The battle that was supposed to demonstrate alien superiority was quickly turning into a demonstration of human tactical genius. Admiral Reeves coordinated her small fleet with the skill of someone who had spent decades studying warfare, while her captains executed maneuvers that seemed impossible to the watching aliens. Their communication systems, Lieutenant Walsh observed from Vengeance's bridge. They are sharing tactical information instantly across their entire fleet. Every ship knows what every other ship is doing at all times. This level of coordination was something the galactic civilizations had never achieved. Their fleets fought as collections of individual ships, each captain making decisions based on limited information. The humans fought as a single organism, with perfect knowledge and instant communication. Grand Admiral Yexthul watched in growing horror, as his superior numbers meant nothing against human tactical superiority. 3 of his battleships were already disabled, their weapons destroyed and their crews evacuating. The human ships moved through his formations like deadly dancers, striking precisely where they could do the most damage. Admiral, his communications officer called out, the human diplomatic vessel is still broadcasting peace offers. Even while their fleet is destroying ours, they continue asking for negotiations. Yexthul could not understand this behavior. In his experience, species that were winning battles pressed their advantage until their enemies were completely defeated. But the humans seemed to be fighting defensively, only targeting weapons and shield systems, rather than trying to destroy ships and kill crews. Captain Brooks executed another impossible maneuver, bringing Guardian through the middle of the alien formation at a speed that should have torn her ship apart. Her precise weapons fire disabled the main guns on 2 alien battleships without damaging their life support or crew areas. Captain, her weapons officer reported, the aliens are trying to target our engines. They want to disable us, not destroy us. Then they are learning, Brooks replied. Continue targeting their weapons only. We want to end this fight, not massacre them. The distinction was lost on most of the alien fleet, But Grand Admiral Yexthal was beginning to understand what was happening. The humans could have destroyed his entire fleet in the first few minutes of combat, but they were deliberately holding back. They were demonstrating their superior capabilities without unnecessary killing. Commander Peter Hayes brought the hospital ship Mercy forward, broadcasting medical assistance offers on all frequencies. Even as the battle continued around them, human medical teams were preparing to help wounded aliens once the fighting stopped. "This is impossible," Yexthal muttered as he watched the tactical display. "No species behaves this way during combat." His flagship shuddered as human weapons fire disabled its main shield generators. The Dominator was defenseless, but instead of destroying it, the human ships moved on to other targets. They were systematically disabling his entire fleet without killing anyone. Dr. Carter's voice continued broadcasting across all communication channels. "We do not wish to harm you. Please allow us to discuss peaceful solutions to whatever concerns you have about our presence here." The battle lasted only 18 minutes from first shot to final alien surrender. When it was over, 37 alien ships were disabled but intact with minimal casualties among their crews. The human fleet had suffered only minor damage to 2 destroyers and no personnel losses. Admiral Reeves opened communication channels to the alien flagship. "Grand Admiral Yexthal, this is Admiral Kate Reeves of the Terran Defense Fleet. We are prepared to offer immediate medical assistance to your wounded personnel. We also request permission to begin rescue operations for any ships in distress." Yexthal stared at the communication console, unable to believe what he was hearing. The humans had just destroyed his fleet, but they were offering to help his wounded soldiers. This level of compassion toward defeated enemies was completely unknown in galactic military doctrine. "Admiral Reeves," he replied slowly, "my flagship has suffered severe damage to our life support systems. Several of my ships have similar problems." "Understood, Admiral," Reeves responded immediately. "We are dispatching medical teams and emergency repair crews to assist you. Our hospital ship Mercy is standing by to receive any seriously wounded personnel." As human rescue teams began boarding disabled alien ships, the crews of both fleets watched in amazement. The humans who had just demonstrated devastating military superiority were now risking their own lives to save alien soldiers who had attacked them without provocation. Grand Admiral Yexthal found himself aboard the human hospital ship Mercy, receiving treatment for injuries sustained when his flagship's bridge was damaged. The human medical team treated him with the same care they showed their own wounded, asking no questions about why he had attacked them. Dr. Carter finally got his chance for face-to-face diplomacy when he visited Yexthal in the medical bay.
"Admiral, I hope you understand that we never wanted this fight."
"We came here seeking peaceful contact with your civilization." Yexthal looked at the human diplomat with new understanding. 3 months had passed since the emergency council session about the human warnings, and life in the galaxy had returned to its normal rhythm. Trade ships moved between star systems carrying goods and passengers, while military patrols kept the space lanes safe from pirates. On Galactic Trade Station Omega-7, Station Commander Veltar was reviewing the daily reports when his communication officer suddenly jumped up from her station. "Commander!" Lieutenant Zixara called out, her voice filled with panic. "I am receiving an impossible transmission. It is coming from the Terran sector." Veltar dropped his reports and rushed over to the communication station. The Terran sector had been declared off-limits by the Galactic Council over 50 years ago due to what they called unstable stellar phenomena. No ship was allowed to enter that region of space, and certainly no signals had ever come from there. "Are you certain about the source?" Veltar asked, leaning over Zixara's shoulder to look at the tracking display. The green dot on the screen clearly showed the signal originating from deep within the Forbidden Zone. "Yes, sir. I have run 3 separate confirmations," Zixara replied, her hand shaking as she adjusted the controls. "The signal is strong and clear, and it is definitely artificial. Someone is trying to communicate with us." Veltar felt his stomach twist into knots. After the recent council warnings about humans, any contact from the Terran sector could only mean one thing. Put the transmission through the universal translator and play it on the main speakers. The station's central command center fell silent as every officer stopped what they were doing to listen. Static filled the air for a moment, then a clear voice spoke in perfect galactic common language. "This is Admiral Kate Reeves of the Terran Defense Fleet," the voice said, calm and professional. We come seeking peaceful contact with the Galactic Council. We are the species you call human. The command center erupted in chaos as officers shouted questions and alarms began sounding throughout the station. Veltar stood frozen in place, unable to believe what he had just heard. The myths were real. Humans existed and they were here. Security Chief Zorthak burst into the command center, his weapon already drawn. What is the emergency? Are we under attack? The humans, Veltar whispered, pointing at the communication station. They are real, and they are trying to make contact. Zorthak's weapon clattered to the floor as the implications hit him. Every child in the galaxy grew up hearing stories about humans, terrifying tales of a species that could destroy worlds and devour stars. Now those childhood nightmares were calling on the radio. Meanwhile, in space near the edge of the Terran sector, a human destroyer called Guardian drifted silently as its crew waited for a response to their transmission. Dr. Ben Carter stood on the bridge next to Captain Nina Brooks, both of them watching the long-range communication array for any sign of an answer. How long should we wait before trying again? Captain Brooks asked, checking her chronometer for the 5th time in 10 minutes. Dr. Carter adjusted his glasses and looked at the communication logs. Give them time, Captain. We just told them that their worst nightmares are real and want to have a friendly chat. They are probably trying to figure out whether to run away or call for help. Or both, Brooks replied with a slight smile. Despite the serious nature of their mission, she found the situation somewhat amusing. Humanity had spent decades searching for intelligent life, never knowing they were already famous throughout the galaxy as mythological monsters. Dr. Carter had spent most of his adult life preparing for this moment. As humanity's leading expert in theoretical xenopsychology, he had studied every piece of information they could gather about potential alien civilizations. He had developed first contact protocols and communication strategies based on thousands of different scenarios, but none of his preparations had included the possibility that aliens already knew about humans and were terrified of them. Dr. Carter, called the communications officer, I am detecting multiple transmissions from the alien station. They appear to be trying to contact someone, probably their government or military. Carter nodded. That is exactly what we expected. They are going to want to verify that we are real and then figure out what to do about us. The question is whether they will choose diplomacy or warfare. Back on Trade Station Omega-7, Commander Veltar was frantically trying to reach Galactic Council headquarters on Nexus Prime. The emergency communication channels were all busy, probably because other stations throughout the galaxy were reporting similar impossible events. Sir, Zixara called from her station, the human ship is transmitting again. Veltar rushed back to listen as Admiral Reeves' voice filled the command center once more. We understand that our contact may be unexpected and possibly frightening. We want to assure you that we come in peace and have no hostile intentions. We request permission to send a small diplomatic vessel to establish formal communication with your government. What should I tell them? Zixara asked, looking up at Veltar with wide, frightened eyes. Veltar had no idea how to answer. There was no protocol for this situation because it was never supposed to happen. Humans were myths, stories told to children. They were not supposed to exist, and they certainly were not supposed to call up and ask for diplomatic meetings. Tell them to wait, Veltar finally said. Tell them we are contacting our government and will respond as soon as possible. On the planet Nexus Prime, home to the Galactic Council, emergency sessions were being called as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. In his private office, Ambassador Krixtal stared at the reports with a mixture of fear and vindication. He had warned the Council about the possibility of human contact, but even he had not expected it to happen so soon. General Throckmore burst into Krixtal's office without knocking, his massive frame filling the doorway. Your archaeological warnings were accurate, he said, his voice tight with tension. Human ships have been detected at 17 different locations along the galactic rim. They are making peaceful contact requests at every location. Krixtal leaned back in his chair and sighed. How is the Council responding? Panic, mostly, Throckmore replied, sitting down heavily in the chair across from Krixtal's desk. Half the delegates want to mobilize the entire galactic fleet, while the other half want to surrender immediately and hope the humans show mercy. And what do you recommend? Krixtal asked. Throckmore was quiet for a long moment, considering his options. The report suggests the humans are being genuinely peaceful in their approach. They could have attacked our stations without warning. But instead they are asking for permission to talk. Maybe we should try talking back. In the outer reaches of the Terran sector, Captain Sam Rodriguez patrolled the perimeter with his squadron of human fighters. His job was to watch for any hostile response from the galactic civilizations and provide early warning if diplomacy failed and warfare began. Rodriguez to Guardian. He transmitted to Dr. Carter's ship. Long-range sensors are picking up movement in the next star system. Looks like a large fleet of alien ships heading in our direction. Dr. Carter received the transmission and immediately contacted Admiral Reeves on the flagship Enterprise. Admiral, we may have a problem. It appears the aliens are sending a military response. Admiral Reeves studied the tactical displays showing the approaching alien fleet. How many ships, Dr. Carter? Captain Rodriguez reports at least 50 vessels of various sizes, Carter replied. They appear to be moving in battle formation. Reeves nodded grimly. She had hoped for a peaceful first contact, but she had also prepared for the possibility that the aliens might respond with fear and aggression. Dr. Carter continued transmitting peaceful intentions. Captain Brooks, prepare Guardian for possible combat, but do not take any offensive actions unless fired upon. Understood. Admiral, both officers replied. As the alien fleet approached, tension filled the human ships. Everyone knew that the next few hours would determine whether humanity's introduction to galactic civilization would be peaceful or violent. The crews checked their weapons and shields while still hoping they would not need to use them. Dr. Carter stood on Guardian's bridge, watching the approaching alien ships on the main screen. As a scientist and diplomat, he believed that all intelligent species could find common ground through communication and understanding. But as the alien fleet grew larger on the sensors, he began to wonder if his optimism had been misplaced. Dr. Carter, Captain Brooks said quietly, if shooting starts, you need to get to the emergency shelter immediately. Your safety is more important than this first contact mission. Carter shook his head. If violence breaks out, Captain, then this mission has already failed. I would rather die trying to make peace than live knowing I ran away when my species needed me most. The alien fleet continued its approach while human ships waited in tense silence. Somewhere in the space between the two forces, the future of galactic civilization hung in the balance. Would first contact lead to friendship and cooperation, or would ancient fears and misunderstandings plunge the galaxy into war? The answer would come soon enough. The aftermath of the battle near Trade Station Omega-7 sent shockwaves throughout galactic civilization that reached far beyond simple military concerns. In council chambers, military academies, and civilian homes across dozens of worlds, the same questions were being asked. How could a species be both terrifyingly powerful and unexpectedly compassionate? The answer would reshape everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare, diplomacy, and the nature of intelligence itself. Dr. Lisa Martinez stood in the archives of the progenitor homeworld, surrounded by ancient texts that the Galactic Council had reluctantly agreed to share with human researchers. The climate-controlled chamber stretched for kilometers underground, filled with stone tablets, metal scrolls, and crystalline data storage devices that had survived for over 12,000 years. Captain Turner, she called to the human officer who was coordinating the joint archaeological expedition. I think I have found something important here. Captain Alex Turner walked over from where he had been examining progenitor star charts with Professor Ellen Davis, the expedition's leading archaeologist. What did you discover, Dr. Martinez? Martinez held up a crystalline tablet that glowed with soft blue light when touched. This appears to be a complete record of progenitor observations about human behavior. But the translations we received from the Galactic Council were completely wrong. Professor Davis joined them, her excitement visible despite her attempt to maintain scientific objectivity. Wrong how, Lisa? The Galactic Council translated the progenitor warnings as describing humans as world breakers and star devourers, Martinez explained. But when I run the original symbols through our independent translation algorithms, I get completely different meanings. She activated a portable display that showed the original progenitor symbols, alongside multiple translation attempts. The symbols they translated as world breaker actually mean world changer, or world improver, and star devourer should be translated as light bringer or illuminator. Captain Turner studied the translations with growing understanding. So the progenitors were not warning other species to fear humans. They were telling them to hope for human contact. It gets even more interesting, Davis added, pulling up additional files on her scanner. I have been analyzing the context of these inscriptions, and they appear to be instructions rather than warnings. The progenitors were telling future civilizations how to recognize humans and how to benefit from contact with them. Meanwhile, in another section of the ruins, Captain Sam Rodriguez was leading a team that had made an equally important discovery. His tactical analysis experts were studying progenitor military records that described ancient conflicts with a species called the Devourers, parasitic beings that consumed entire civilizations. Dr. Carter, Rodriguez transmitted to the diplomatic team, "You need to see what we found down here." The progenitors fought a war against something they called the Devourers, and according to these records, humans were their most effective allies in that conflict. Dr. Carter made his way through the ancient corridors to join Rodriguez's team. The chamber they had uncovered was filled with battle records showing tactical formations and weapon designs that were clearly human in origin. "The progenitors and humans fought together?" Carter asked, studying the displays that showed combined fleets attacking parasitic ship formations. "More than that," Rodriguez replied, pointing to detailed tactical analyses carved into the chamber walls. According to these records, human strategic thinking was the key to defeating the Devourers. The progenitors had superior technology, but humans provided the unpredictable tactics that the enemy could not counter. Dr. Carter felt pieces of a larger puzzle clicking into place in his mind. "Captain Rodriguez, do these records indicate what happened to the Devourers after they were defeated?" Rodriguez consulted his portable scanner. The final entries suggest that the Devourers were not destroyed, only driven back to the edges of the galaxy. The progenitors believed they would eventually return. Back on Nexus Prime, Ambassador Krixtal was reviewing intelligence reports from the Galactic Rim territories with growing alarm. For months, his government had been receiving disturbing reports about the Nexus Hive, a parasitic species that had been expanding aggressively through the outer systems. General Thrackmore entered Krixtal's office carrying a stack of military reports. "The situation in the Rim territories is getting worse," he announced without preamble. "The Hive has consumed 17 more star systems in the past 6 months. Our fleets cannot stop them." "What do you mean they cannot stop them?" Krixtal asked, looking up from his own reports. "Our military doctrine is not effective against their tactics," Thrackmore explained, his voice heavy with frustration. "The Hive fights unlike any enemy we have ever encountered. They seem to anticipate our every move and counter our strategies before we can implement them." Krixtal studied the tactical reports showing Hive victories across multiple star systems. "General, these parasitic tactics look familiar. Do you remember the ancient progenitor records we discovered?" Thrackmore's eyes widened as he made the connection. "The Devourers. You think the Nexus Hive are the same species the progenitors fought 12,000 years ago?" "The behavioral patterns are identical," Krixtal replied, pulling up comparative analyses on his display screen. "Parasitic expansion, consumption of entire civilizations, tactical unpredictability. And if the progenitor records are accurate, then conventional galactic military forces will never be able to defeat them. But the records also say that humans were the key to victory in the ancient war," Thrackmore said slowly. "If the Hive truly are the returning Devourers, then perhaps human assistance is not just beneficial, but necessary." On the progenitor homeworld, Captain Turner received an urgent communication from Admiral Reeves aboard the Enterprise. "Captain, we have received new intelligence from the Galactic Council about a parasitic species called the Nexus Hive. They appear to be expanding rapidly through the Rim territories." Turner activated his communication system to include all the human teams working in the ruins. "Dr. Martinez, Professor Davis, Captain Rodriguez, are you hearing this transmission?" "Yes, sir," came the responses from around the archaeological site. "Based on your research into progenitor records, could this Nexus Hive be related to the ancient Devourers?" Admiral Reeves asked. Dr. Martinez consulted her translation files. "Admiral, the behavioral descriptions match perfectly. The progenitor records describe the Devourers as a parasitic species that consumed civilizations and could not be defeated by conventional military tactics. And according to the military records," Captain Rodriguez added, "human tactical creativity was the only thing that could counter their strategies. The progenitors had better technology, but they needed human unpredictability to win." Professor Davis had been quietly analyzing additional progenitor texts while listening to the conversation. Admiral, I think I understand why the progenitors left these records. They were not just documenting the past, they were preparing for the future. Explain. Professor, Admiral Reeves requested. The final progenitor entries suggest they knew the Devourers would return eventually, Davis explained. They also believed that when that happened, galactic civilization would need human assistance to survive. These ruins were not just historical records, they were instructions for future generations. The implications of this discovery sent ripples of understanding through both human and alien leadership. The mysterious warnings about humans had actually been recommendations. The progenitors had not feared human power. They had counted on it. Admiral Reeves made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Dr. Carter, I want you to contact the Galactic Council immediately. Offer them a formal alliance against the Nexus Hive threat. Admiral, Carter replied. Based on our archaeological findings, I believe the Council will be very interested in such an alliance. The question is whether they will be able to overcome thousands of years of viewing humans as mythological threats. On Nexus Prime, the emergency council session was unlike any in galactic history. For the first time, human representatives were invited to address the full assembly. Dr. Carter stood at the central podium where Ambassador Crickstall had announced the discovery of progenitor warnings just months earlier. Honored delegates, Carter began. We now understand that the ancient progenitor records were not warnings about human danger, but instructions for human cooperation. The species you call the Nexus Hive are the same devourers that threatened galactic civilization 12,000 years ago. The council chamber was silent as delegates processed this information. General Thrackmore stood up from his seat. Dr. Carter, are you suggesting that humanity is willing to assist us in fighting the Hive threat? More than willing, General, Carter replied. According to the progenitor records, human tactical thinking is specifically suited to countering devourer strategies. We believe that only a combined human galactic force can stop their expansion. Ambassador Crickstall rose from his seat, his voice carrying across the chamber. Dr. Carter, 3 months ago this council feared that humans were mythological monsters come to destroy us. Today you offer to fight alongside us against a real threat. Why should we trust you? 6 months after the historic alliance agreement was signed in the Galactic Council chambers, the combined fleet that assembled at the edge of Hive space represented something unprecedented in the recorded history of the galaxy. Human battleships flew in formation alongside Zolonian cruisers, hegemony dreadnoughts, and vessels from 47 different species. The sight would have been impossible to imagine just a year earlier, when humans were still considered mythological creatures from children's stories. Admiral Kate Reeves stood on the bridge of the flagship Enterprise, watching tactical displays that showed the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Over 3,000 ships from dozens of different civilizations had answered the call to fight against the Nexus Hive threat. But impressive as the numbers were, Reeves knew that victory would depend on more than just ship counts. Admiral, reported Captain Nina Brooks from her position aboard the heavy cruiser Justice, long-range scouts are detecting massive Hive concentrations in the next star system. Intelligence estimates at least 10,000 enemy vessels. Reeves nodded grimly. The Nexus Hive had been expanding unchecked for decades, consuming entire civilizations and adding their ships to their ever-growing fleet. What the Alliance faced was not just an enemy military force, but the accumulated remains of hundreds of conquered species. Dr. Carter, Reeves called to the diplomatic liaison who had become her primary advisor on alien psychology. How are our allied commanders handling the tactical briefings? Dr. Ben Carter consulted his reports from the various fleet sections. Better than expected, Admiral. The Zolonian and Hegemony commanders are adapting quickly to human tactical concepts. Ambassador Crickstall has been particularly helpful in explaining our strategies to species that have never encountered unpredictable warfare. The challenge facing the Alliance was enormous. For thousands of years, galactic civilizations had fought wars using formal, predictable tactics based on mathematical calculations and established protocols. The Nexus Hive, like their ancient predecessors, the Devourers, thrived against such conventional strategies because they could anticipate and counter every move. Human military doctrine was completely different. Trained in academies that taught improvisation, creativity, and adaptive thinking, human commanders could change their tactics in real time based on battlefield conditions. This unpredictability was exactly what the progenitor records had identified as the key to defeating parasitic species. Lieutenant Commander Chris Morgan, now serving as a tactical instructor for the Alliance fleet, worked with alien pilots in the fighter bays of various ships. His job was to teach them human combat techniques while learning to incorporate their advanced technologies into effective battle strategies. The key is not to think about what your enemy expects you to do, Morgan explained to a group of Centauri pilots. Think about what they do not expect, then do something completely different from that. The alien pilots struggled with this concept because their entire military training had been based on following established procedures and protocols. The idea of deliberately choosing unpredictable actions went against everything they had been taught about military discipline. But gradually, they began to understand. Captain Derek Stone, commanding the cruiser Vengeance, watched with satisfaction as mixed human-alien squadrons began executing maneuvers that combined the best of both tactical philosophies. Human creativity merged with alien technology to create something greater than either could achieve alone. The first major engagement came when the Alliance fleet encountered a Hive scouting force in the outer system of Kepler 438. The enemy formation consisted of over 500 ships arranged in the complex geometric patterns that had proven impossible for galactic forces to counter. All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Reeves, came the transmission across all Alliance channels. Remember your training. Do not follow standard engagement protocols. Trust your human tactical advisors and be ready to adapt your strategies as the battle develops. Captain Peter Hayes, commanding the medical vessel Mercy, coordinated the largest battlefield hospital operation in galactic history. His ship and dozens of others were prepared to handle casualties from 47 different species, each with unique medical requirements. The battle began exactly as progenitor records had described ancient conflicts with the Devourers. The Hive ships moved in perfect coordination, their formation shifting and adapting to counter every conventional tactic the Alliance attempted. For the first hour of combat, it seemed as though the enemy's predictive capabilities would give them an easy victory. Then the human tactical advisors began implementing their real strategies. Captain Brooks brought justice through the center of the Hive formation in a maneuver that should have been suicidal, but instead caught the enemy completely off guard. Her mixed human-Zolonian crew executed precision strikes that disrupted the Hive's coordination patterns. They cannot predict what we are doing, reported Lieutenant Amy Walsh from Vengeance's bridge. Their formation algorithms are designed to counter logical tactical decisions, but our strategies are deliberately illogical. The tide of battle began to turn as Alliance commanders embraced the chaos of human tactical thinking. Ships that had spent centuries following rigid protocols suddenly found themselves making split-second decisions based on intuition rather than calculation. Commander Sam Rodriguez led a fighter squadron that included pilots from 12 different species in an attack that used gravitational slingshot maneuvers around the system's twin stars. The approach was so unconventional that the Hive ships failed to recognize it as an attack until it was too late. "This is impossible," transmitted Grand Admiral Yex Thule from his flagship Dominator. "My tactical computers show a 97% probability that Rodriguez's maneuver should result in his destruction, but instead he is achieving devastating success against enemy positions." Dr. Carter smiled as he listened to the transmissions flowing between Alliance ships. "Admiral Yexethul, you are beginning to understand what makes human tactics so effective. We do not calculate probabilities. We create possibilities." The battle lasted 14 hours and ended with the complete destruction of the Hive scouting force. More importantly, it proved that the Alliance concept could work. Human unpredictability combined with alien technology and resources created a military force that the Hive could not counter. But the real test came 3 weeks later, when the Alliance fleet reached the Hive homeworld. The enemy had concentrated their entire remaining force, over 50,000 ships, in a defensive formation around their central breeding planet. Admiral Reeves studied the tactical displays, showing the massive enemy concentration. "This is what we came here to do," she announced to her fleet commanders. "If we can destroy their homeworld, we can break their expansion permanently." The final battle was unlike anything ever seen in galactic warfare. The Alliance fleet attacked in waves, each using completely different tactical approaches that prevented the Hive from adapting their defenses. Human commanders led mixed squadrons in strikes that combined human creativity with the advanced shield technologies of the hegemony, the precision weapons of the Zolonians, and the speed capabilities of the Centauri. Captain Turner brought the battleship Defiance through an asteroid field in a flanking maneuver that took his ship within striking distance of the Hive planetary defenses. His crew included aliens who had been enemies just months earlier, but now worked together with perfect coordination. Professor Ellen Davis, now serving as the fleet's intelligence specialist, had discovered the Hive's critical weakness through her continued study of progenitor records. Admiral, their central coordination node is located in the planet's northern polar region. If we can disable it, their entire fleet will lose coordination. The strike that ended the war was led by Dr. Carter himself, piloting a small diplomatic vessel that the Hive ignored as a non-threatening target. Using a progenitor translation device that Davis had reconstructed from ancient plans, he broadcast a shutdown signal directly into the Hive coordination network. The effect was immediate and devastating. 50,000 enemy ships suddenly stopped coordinating their movements, becoming individual targets that the Alliance fleet could defeat in detail. The parasitic species that had threatened galactic civilization for thousands of years was finally eliminated. As the last Hive ship fell silent and the Alliance fleet regrouped around the conquered homeworld, Admiral Reeves opened communications to all ships. This victory belongs to every species in our alliance. Today we proved that cooperation can overcome any threat. But the real victory was not military. It was cultural. The species that had feared humans as mythological monsters had discovered that working alongside them made them stronger than they had ever imagined possible. Human tactical thinking had not just defeated the Hive, it had transformed galactic civilization itself. In the months that followed, the Alliance evolved into something permanent. The Academy of Integrated Warfare was established on the former Hive homeworld, where human instructors like Captain Brooks and Commander Morgan taught alongside alien masters. Students from dozens of species learned to combine the best aspects of all their cultures.